Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I have a really cool show in store for you today. I am talking, first of all, with Gayle Dendinger. He is the...
Howdy, y'all.
Yeah. Hi, Gayle. How are you?
Fine and dandy.
Awesome. That is great to hear. So a couple things about Gayle. One, he is the founder of the Colorado Business Roundtable, and so I occasionally get to do shows with you, but they've gotten a little bit fewer and further between. Also, though, you are the owner and founder of CAP Logistics as well, which is the role that you're playing on the show today for us. Yes. So some exciting things are happening for CAP Logistics. One, we have never been... you guys are at an amazing pace on sales this year. Yeah? Awesome stuff. But in anticipation of expansion, I know that you are doing some construction, and some people may or may not know that the Cobert offices are right next door to CAP Logistics. And so we've had some construction going on, which leads me to the other two gentlemen in the room. I have with me Dave Spratlen and Andy Larsen, both from Commercial Building Services. So, Dave, how are you today?
Doing very good. Thank you for having us on.
Yes, wonderful. And Andy, how's it going?
I'm well, thank you.
Fantastic. So I have you guys on. One, Gayle brought you in because you are the builders for the reconstruction that is going on next door for CAP Logistics. But the other reason that I wanted to have you guys on, and that we know as our regular listeners on Connect and Collaborate, the construction industry is facing a little bit of a shortage on workers. And first of all, that's sad and it sucks. And so we would like to fix that. So one of the goals for today is to get the word out there that you guys are in fact hiring. Yes?
We are.
Cool. Yeah.
And I think this is a good time to talk about your person, Carl, who has an absolutely tremendous personality and a management style that I really enjoy. So can you talk a little bit about how you got him and how you work with him and why he's so valuable to you?
So Carl is a superintendent, so he is the king of the job site, on site every day. So he's the first one in the job and the last one out, and he's in there for the duration. So he helps assemble a team of subcontractors. Carl doesn't self-perform any of the construction work, but he is the guy who orchestrates it. So he ends up with a team in the beginning, and he builds that team morale and pushes the guys through, and we try to maximize everybody's strengths and minimize every weaknesses, and Carl, without a doubt, has the ability to do that. He's done it for a long time.
Awesome.
And we tried to drag him in here today, but I guess you put him to work. Is that right? Thank you very much. He's a real character. He's got way more charisma than all of us put together, and he's not here.
That is true.
Well, I imagine that the charisma really explodes out on the floor with his fellow workers, right?
It does. I think the superintendent sets the pace and the attitude of the work environment day to day on a construction project.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, Dave, we'll get to you in a little bit. Be patient. So, Andy, you come from a family business, and when I looked at your website, it looks like you guys have been around since 1967. That's the year I graduated from high school, so I know that's a long, long time ago. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of a family business, maybe some of the pluses and minuses of a family business, because we're also a family business, and there's some really, really good things, and then there's some things where you're just too close. So,
sure.
So can you talk about, and then make it really gory?
Perfect.
Right.
My father started the business in 1967. It was started as a service business. The goal was never to have a construction company. It evolves through clients' needs and their desire to move from build us a closet to build us an office to remodel our building to build us another building next door. So the business grew slowly but surely over the last more than 40 years. He's still involved today. I came to work. I grew up in the construction business. When I was in high school, I was a laborer on job sites. I left for a few years, went to college, came back and worked as a superintendent, a project manager, an estimator, construction manager, everything but bookkeeper, including janitor. So that's the only way you can really truly figure out how to run this business and what the challenges are in every position. That being said, it's a family business. The two of us are the only ones involved. I went to college for a long time, and I learned a lot of things. The first couple of years when I came back into the office to work beside my dad, I spent the first couple of years telling him everything he had done wrong and what I learned in college.
Yes! I love your dad.
So he fired me a couple times.
I love him even more.
It took about 5 years for us to figure out where each other's strengths and weaknesses were. So we're very fortunate to have him around still today. He's retired 3 times. He continually shows up at the office, and finally he told me about a year ago I figured out the definition of retirement, and I said, what's that? And he says, it's getting up every morning doing exactly what you want to do. So he's there. He's a great sounding board. He lets us all make mistakes. That's part of the learning process. There are no free educations, but he curtails us from making the fatal mistakes. So it's great. It's a wonderful environment. I think commercial building services is labeled as a family business, and I think that's not because the owners are related. I think it's the atmosphere in which we work in.
That does carry through. So what are some advantages to your clientele of you guys being a family business and struggled internally and learn from each other?
I think we are willing to adapt. We're very nimble. We are a small business. We have 23 employees. We all have our own personalities. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses, and we cover for each other. And I think our clients are the same way. We understand challenges of everybody's business and the dynamics that work inside that door that the public doesn't often see. We end up coming into your home, more or less, and disturbing it. So we have to be cognizant of everybody's pain thresholds and figure out the dynamics of how the group works and how we can interact with them.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Dave, I actually have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Are you related, first of all?
No, I'm not part of the family,
But
but
they look alike a little bit, don't they?
A little bit.
Right.
I think
From the
you
same-
start to look like your coworkers after a while.
Same side of
Exactly.
the island, I think.
probably. No, but I just to kind of add on to what Andy was saying, with the family business, I think in addition, what it brings to the clients as well is it brings a lot of care. When you work for someone who has in a family business, they care about the people under them, and it's a lot. A lot of companies give that kind of lip service, but it's so true. And there's a lot of care and emphasis on just the people aspect of the business, which, a lot of people can build stuff and make things look pretty, but when it comes down to it, you're still doing business with people.
So then you guys are in the design build business, is that right? And I went to a seminar 2 days ago with Vistage and had a really, really good speaker, and he says that all things start with design. So now we're going to talk about design build, and the importance of design. So can you talk a little bit about starting with the blueprint and why that's important, and then kind of how you do it?
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the things I love about design is it is the upfront work. It's, an open slate oftentimes. There's, endless possibilities. And sometimes, when there's restrictions or constraints, those actually create some of the more unique opportunities for a project.
I've never believed that, but, go with that.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
I think you got to sometimes turn those opportunities that you feel pressure with and actually turn them to a positive.
Yeah, and there's no one along the way that tries to throw a wrench in anything, is there?
It happens all the
not
time.
to be named, right.
Yeah, and so it does all, I think somewhat starts with the design as far as that interaction that we have with the client. I know one of the things I always kind of start with is it's all about listening. The more I listen to a client, understand what their needs are, rather than just telling them, here's what I think you need to do. Oftentimes they inform the design to me, and it's just a matter of me of molding and shaping it into the right end product for them. So seeking to understand is part of that. So when I ask questions or on site, it's not just about listening, but I ask questions, probing questions to really understand what do they mean by that. Everyone's definition of a certain terminology or feeling is different.
So you just quoted Covey, right? So you can understand.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong concept.
Okay, and then there's another concept, we talked about it before, which is getting the right people on the bus. So we'll talk about that too. So when you started working down here, you got a lot of input, and then you gave us a 3D video.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? And
Yeah, for people that are in the industry all the time, it's real easy for us to look at a schematic, a drawing, notes, all the different abbreviations and understand what that means. But oftentimes for our clients, it's very helpful to have a 3D image, not even a static rendering at times, which can be helpful, but
Right.
actually be able to walk through the space, whether it's on a computer screen like a first-person video game or actually
Right.
with virtual reality goggles. So you can really immerse yourself in that space and understand what some of the implications and options are.
so what do you like about our building, and what do you like about some of the things that you guys did to the building?
I love the fact that we were able to, we had a strong core. It's a big concrete box of a building. It was very industrial looking.
Double T construction,
Exactly,
right?
double T construction. You
Right.
see it on bridges, on a lot of industrial buildings. And I think the dichotomy between that and what we've done inside, where we still brought some of the industrial feeling and flair,
Right.
but really softened up the space and made it feel a lot more inviting and comfortable.
And go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I'm very impressed with the fact you cut windows and doors and stuff in cement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that fun?
It is fun, and that's where the double T's are a wonderful building product. All their construction and attributes are in that flange aspect, the point that
So the
sticks out.
strength is in the flange.
Yeah, so you have a lot of flexibility
Right.
on the T part that comes out, where you can cut, you can manipulate to quite an extent,
So
actually.
as I understand, this is a German type of construction. It goes back a long time ago, and they stretch wires and then pour cement. Is that right?
Yes, often they are a precast type of application that's
Right.
tensioned. Concrete works really good in compression, but not so good in tension. So oftentimes what they'll do is they'll pre-compress the concrete, and so that way it's already in its optimal state.
So you don't have damage then from being compressed.
No, it's actually...
It's already compressed.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. So what do you like about Andy?
He's not. We'll pretend he's not here.
Right.
I think it's important when you work with someone to work with someone who picks up where some of your weaknesses
Right.
are.
And it's really important on a radio show when you're sitting with them that you say nice things about it.
Andy has a wonderful way of finding unique opportunities and reframing difficult situations to make the best out of them. I oftentimes have a weakness of struggling with facing difficult situations. And so working with Andy, he has a great way of bringing it back into light and framing it into context that we can all wrap our heads around and actually tackle that situation with a very efficient approach.
Do you
I-
mind, dude? Sorry,
Go ahead.
just
No, I'm not going to walk on you for like a minute.
I just wanted you to define what a difficult situation is for you.
Oftentimes it's, we had a client that had a very unique opportunity with a city with some of the development agreements that were situated with it. And as an architect, that's a little bit out of my comfort zone, and it's a lot of legalese, a lot of just negotiating with, parties at the city as well as with the client. And being able to have that interaction is far removed from probably my strengths. And someone like Andy is able to jump right in and really be able to soften those edges and make those connections as needed.
Awesome. Thank you. I needed an example. Brush stroke, if you will.
And then to make this fair, then what do you like about Andy? All right, I did that wrong. We already talked about
Yeah.
Andy. I'm sorry.
Let's not
I was
do it
drifting
again.
off here. Yeah, let's not do it again. So vice versa. What do you like about working with Dave?
I think working with David is fun because he's a lot smarter than me.
Wow.
I seem to get us in precarious situations, and then I tell David, "How are you going to get us out of this?" And David can draw us out of it. I can try to talk us out of it. So I think it's a nice blend. David's very strong in design, and my strength is in constructability. So that's where the balance is. It's fun to be able to be involved in the beginning and the design. And when David starts drawing something crazy, I tell him, just because you can draw it doesn't mean we can build it. So
Sounds like an honest
it's a check
conversation.
and balance situation.
I think that's so true in design is having that ability to have the connection with the estimating, the construction arm right there, right next to my desk. It's a huge asset to me as a designer and architect.
So we're in the logistics business. We handle about 200 shipments today. They're all high touch, and they're very, very valuable. And there's a certain amount that fall through the crack. Part of it is our fault once in a while, and part of it we're dependent upon everybody else. The reason why I brought you guys in here was there was one or two small snags along the way. I've been in situations before where you have a change order, and so, these change orders just knock you for a loop. And I want to compliment you on the fact that there weren't change orders. As we made changes, we went in and we worked these things out. And when there were a couple different snags, the way you guys handled yourself was very professional. And you can never do construction without any kind of a snag. I watch my wife work with contractors, but I really want to compliment you guys on the way that you worked when these problems did come up. And the reason also why I brought you here today is I wanted to create some kind of a reference for you guys. If you have some kind of a customer that you're working with and you want a good word, then we're more than happy to do that. And later on, towards the end of the show, we might use the last couple of minutes for you to tell these gentlemen how they can best use the podcast and radio show and so on.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for showing a lot of class. It's all about class.
We appreciate that. We pride ourselves in that. There are probably...
Boy, did I tee this up nice for you.
Yeah, you did. There's probably 30 or 40 contractors in Denver that could build the same project that we built for you next door. I think the costs are the costs, and we would all be relatively close. I think the biggest difference is how the level of service you get from your contractor. That's our biggest commitment. 80 to 90% of our business is repeat business and referral business. That's the best business to get. And those are the best partners to have as you move forward with construction projects.
And it's the easiest way to sell. Otherwise, selling is tough.
It is. And I think that sometimes the biggest challenges we have in our industry is communication, and sometimes we assume that our client understands everything that we tell them.
Right.
And when we show them things, sometimes that exposes some of the disconnect on different levels of expectation. So we try to iron a lot of those out ahead of time. The 3D imaging and virtual walkthroughs prior to construction starting irons out some of those. You can't avoid them all. So construction is just a series of opportunities, and it's how you handle them and recover from them.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Montana State University, Bozeman.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where'd you learn your command of the English language? You're quite good.
That's one of my degrees.
Is it really?
It is.
English or lit or what?
English lit, elementary ed, business management.
Awesome.
As a freshman, or did you change majors?
I changed majors as I went through. I started as business management.
I started out in engineering and took my first engineering course. And man, this is really, really, really hard. Way harder than the little high school that I got good grades in. And then I ended up getting a literature degree. Did that for a couple of years and decided, boy, this is going to be pretty tough. And then started my junior year in business. I wonder how many kids have the same thing. Don't have a clue as to what they're going to do.
I would say that it's a lot of kids that start out. One of the big things that I know that Colorado Business Roundtable really advocates for is workforce development. One of those being that a lot of students these days don't necessarily need a four-year degree. One of the most underrated places that you can go and is into a trade, right? That being construction.
Absolutely.
Yes. I know that, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, that we wanted to talk a little bit about the shortage here, and you guys are hiring. And what would you look for?
I think there is a huge shortage of skilled tradespeople in our state, probably nationwide.
Yes.
Everybody goes to college now. That seems to be the norm. That's left us a big hole in our skilled trade and labor market. Because of that shortage, guys that are coming out of college with four-year degrees in construction management aren't making as much as potential plumbers that had spent the last 4 years in the field learning how to be great plumbers. There's much less competition in the field versus office positions. So if you're not sure what you want to do, I'd suggest you get in and do a trade for a while, and then if you decide that's not right, at least you have a great foundation and opportunities.
Exactly. One of the things that I always talk about is going and doing construction for a summer, right? Your senior year, you're not sure what you want to do, make a little bit of money, and if you really hate doing construction, go ahead. Look at other areas, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I grew up in a family with construction, so I think it establishes some work ethic and dedication as well. But also, as Andy mentioned, a skilled trade that you can carry forward regardless of your path that you take.
Yeah, and it's good money. I
great
think
money.
that's been swept under the rug for far too long. It's really good money, and you don't end up with all the student loan debt in the long run.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I have a couple of favorite questions that I'd
Yeah,
like to
please.
ask. I learned this from John Icard. He was the CEO of First Bank, and he says that there's two things that you always have to remember. He says that CEOs always know the time that they thought that they were going to die. You know, the company was going to die, they weren't going to make payroll. That might have happened, 2 or 3 or 4 times. And before we start with that, then Carl actually told me how he was working in a mine in Wyoming, I believe, and a wall caved in or a cave caved in on him. So he really thought he was going to die and was able to get out of it somehow. That's why I wanted him on the show today so he could go talk about that and what his mindset was like. Can you talk about some times that you thought you weren't going to make it? And I'll bet it happened more than once. It never happened?
I think that's a daily thing. I'm always terrified that I will be the guy holding the sign on the side of the road, and that's what gets me out of bed every morning and forces me into those uncomfortable conversations and cold calls and out looking for.
It's all the same, isn't it?
We eat what we kill, and we have to go out and hunt every day, or else I don't eat, and the rest of the team doesn't eat. We all have different strengths, but that's a huge responsibility on all of us. And
one of the places where I thought we were going to die, we were on the receiving end of a very, very nasty lawsuit in a state that had no tort limits, and the chance of us getting through were pretty slim. I had picked out 6 and Colorado Boulevard is where I was going to panhandle. And I know exactly. It's like, what are you going to do? Still have to go feed the family? And that's real salesmanship, don't you think?
Without a doubt.
And I like to talk to people, when you get a chance. There's some really sad tales out there, and they're human beings, and it doesn't seem like, it seems like you're just standing along the side of the road, and it's way, way more complicated than that. I guess that's another subject. The other thing that John says is the very best and worst decisions have to do with people. So we've talked a little bit already about good people. Who's somebody, a type of person, whatever, that maybe you kept too long, or some other horror story that kept you awake for 6 months?
I don't think a successful team captain looks at himself and says, I was successful and I'm the one who made this project successful. I think you have to be willing to be a member of the team, and you have to look out for others, and often you have to look out for others more so than yourself. Nobody can be successful without a team, and we all win or lose together. So I think if
you're good.
We've had some strong-headed ones that feel that they're dragging everybody along with them.
Right.
In the process, they're abusing everybody along, and we're all just riding in a real rough wagon behind them.
Right. Boy, that's well said. I love your background. Alex, we got a little bit of time left. Can you tell these guys and our audience how to use the radio show and how to use the podcasts?
Yes, certainly. What we do, we have a blog post that is that lives at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. You can find all of our past shows there. If there is an industry you're interested in, we have covered it. I can assure you that. We have on that blog post all of the videos that we have recorded that's available on our YouTube channel. Just Google Colorado Business Roundtable and YouTube, and we will pop up. And so you can find all of our past shows there as well. And the podcast lives on forever. You can share that with your audience so that they know what you can offer them. We've gotten some great insight today. Thank you, Gayle. Thank you very much, Dave and Andy. It has been a pleasure. And be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page while you're here. Have a wonderful day, you guys.
And thank you guys for a job well done.
Thank you.